You're listening to the Full 10 Yards of Britball podcast with your host, Timothy Lambert-Monk. Yeah, so welcome in one and all. This is the Full 10 Yards at Britball podcast. Before we get into today's show, just want to say thank you for you that are tuning in, watching, listening and subscribing and supporting us in the ways that you do. If you want to find us on socials, at Full 10 Yards on Twitter or at F10Y Britball for the Britball side of things. Don't forget you can find out all the latest Britball fixtures and divisions and all the ahead of the regionalised division, some podcasts and some announcements over at full10yards.com. So make your way over there if you haven't done so already. But as you can see at the bottom of the screen, we have the Worcestershire Black Knights on for today as we continue our tour up and down the country. Delighted to welcome in today Edd Purslow, who's club secretary and O-lineman as well. So he's a man of many talents. Edd, welcome you in.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
How are we doing?
Yeah, not too bad. Currently recovering from a knee injury, but taking everything I can just to make sure that I'm back in the game when I need to be.
So what did you do?
Tackle went wrong. I'll just put it that way.
Okay,
but
yeah. So
the knee's still there. That's all that matters.
Tackle went wrong, knee still there. That's the takeaway from from the podcast. Obviously you are taking part in this as part of the Worcestershire Black Knights. So before we get into kind of the crux of the team, just maybe do you want to talk about yourself personally, how you got into the sport, how you got into Britball, and then how you found yourself at the Black Knights?
Well, I've always growing up. I grew up quite rural, so you didn't really hear very much about American football where I grew up. But my uncle was always quite a big Green Bay fan. I've kind of continued that tradition in the family, I guess. But I knew about American football when I got to university, but the price of it scared me off a little bit. But after my first semester, I just thought, I'm just going to go all guns blazing, went into it, and I've not turned back since. So, it all started out playing for the Worcester Royals in 2017, and since then, I've loved the sport. It's been everything, really.
Yeah, I'm yet to find someone that's gotten into the sport and then left it because they didn't enjoy it or they didn't like it or they didn't feel part of a family. Anyone out there that feels differently, you are a liar. But a bit more about the Worcestershire Black Knights and Edd. Obviously, been a lot of challenges for just not your team. Obviously, teams all up and down across the UK over the last 12, 18 months. But as a kind of the club secretary, how was kind of been the main challenges for you guys as a team? Finances and sponsorships and funding?
Well, I think over the past couple of years, because I've been in the committee under different roles before I was secretary, sponsorship has been something we've been, I wouldn't say struggling with, but something that we are developing, trying to change our partnership program so that we can hopefully attract more investors into the club. Over the first lockdown, I was the marketing officer for the club, and I've kind of upgraded through going for the position during the AGM in December, and I decided that first lockdown would be a really good time to try and boost up all of the social media, ready for just in case we need to change our image or if we need to go into partnerships, and to be able to tell potential partners that we have social media large enough and has enough reach that it's going to be worth them investing in the club because their brand is going to get out there. And so that was a big goal of mine going through that first lockdown. And as I've gone from marketing officer to secretary, I've just made sure that the current marketing officer's being supported in his role and just making sure that the club's ticking over as it should be, ready for the season to start.
Well, whilst we're here on social, what's your handle so that everyone watching and listening can go follow you?
I can get that up for you in a mo. I think it's cool. WBK Knights, but I could be wrong. It's WBK Football UK.
There you go. Go and search. Go on Twitter. Go on Facebook. Go on all the socials and go and find. Just go and do what you can. Probably type in Worcestershire Black Knights and it'll be there anyway. So yeah, go give them a follow. Go and give them a bigger reach. Just do Ed a favour. Do me a favour as well. Do it a favour for me. But on the playing side, Ed, with regards to players themselves, what's it been like? Numbers wise, participation? Obviously, it's been pretty much Zoom meetings or online training for the last 12 months. Is there been any particular struggles with numbers or getting people signed up, registered, or obviously I noticed on the website obviously a relocation as well. So what? Tell us from a numbers and a playing standpoint.
So, I mean, before the first lockdown, I think our numbers were quite low, and I think that was a big reason as to why we didn't do as well as we might wanted to in the season before lockdown. But since we've returned, we're seeing around about 40 at each training session, which is brilliant. Really good to see. Loads of new players, lots of returning players, and I think we're getting a really good mix of experiences, and those newer players are getting welcomed into the club basically as soon as they turn up on the pitch and get their cleats on. So I think compared to how it was when I arrived, I think we've definitely established a much healthier club and team ethos when you're coming onto the training pitch. And at the moment, with the restrictions being lifted as our sessions have gone on, I think the club's really clicking now and have got high ambitions for everybody on the team, really.
And obviously you have cadet levels teams as well, and you've got your youth, and you've got. Has it been any concerns over the last 12 to 18 months? You mentioned there about struggles with sponsorships and funding. Was there any concerns that Worcestershire wouldn't be able to still be here today and going ahead with the regionalised divisions?
So we haven't got a cadet or a youth team, but that is something we're looking forward to in the future, which is why we decided to try and develop our partnership program. And I think at the moment, just coming out of the pandemic, the big key focus for us is just making sure we've got the ball rolling with the adult contact team.
Sure.
And as it stands at the moment, I think everybody on the committee, not just myself, not just the chairman, and in fact everyone on the team is doing a really good job to help bolster the image of the Knights, which has been a bit of a problem considering we went 0-8 in our last season and backed out of the playoffs the season before. We've got an image to keep up, and I'm not too concerned at the moment. A little bit more money would be nice, but I think that's every club in that situation. So we're just going to keep rolling on at the moment, I think.
Yeah, I could have sworn I was on your website and I saw some links towards cadet and youth, or maybe I was looking at something else and I got confused. Wouldn't be surprising because I'm an idiot. Yeah, no, as I would. What's it been like? Obviously, you mentioned obviously you got a good group there together now. 40 people turned up. What's it been like actually training, practicing with the COVID restrictions and being compliant? Has it been difficult to implement that with where you've been training and playing? It's been difficult because initially it's a 6-man or 6 group people per group type stuff. Has there been a particular challenges since you've been back on the field?
I don't think it's necessarily been a challenge. I think head coach Hughes has done a really good job of organising things as the kind of restriction bands have come off, so to speak. Obviously, we started off in our units and we've kind of conglomerated together into O and then D and then both sides of the field going at it. And I think it's just a matter of getting used to the physicality again. Obviously, I was on the sideline last Sunday, the joys of being injury reserve. And just, it was a bit eerie to watch, and I think a lot of people felt it was a bit weird. I think just because they're not used to that contact. So we need to take measures now to make sure that players are ready for that contact so that we reduce the risk of injuries come the real season, especially considering some of the teams will be against.
Yeah, absolutely. And I noticed again. Hopefully, I've been searching the right website. But you moved over to Worcestershire rugby club. I saw. Did you practice there, or is there somewhere else you practice? And have you actually managed to play on the rugby field yet?
Yeah. So originally, like previous seasons, we've trained at Perth as well, which is more based in the city.
Right.
But we have been in discussion with the rugby club up by Six Ways, up by the Worcester Warriors, and they've accommodated us brilliantly. The committee have been really quick to respond, and we've been training on one of their other fields for the time being, but we're going across to their main site this week. And then when it comes to game days, we've got access to their bar and their food services, and I think it's just a much better venue than where we were before in terms of drawing in supporters, potentially drawing in additional players, and just bolstering the name of the sport in the county.
Yeah, and again, obviously, 2021 is all about kind of regionalised divisions, and there's some familiar name teams in there for you guys. Obviously, Bristol and South Wales were guys that you played in 2019. But again, you're joined by Birmingham this year, who were decent in the division escapes me now. It was Div 2. They were at the top of their division, weren't they? What are you kind of looking to get out of the 2021 season? And for you personally, obviously, would be to actually get onto the field and play. But from a Worcestershire standpoint, what does 2021 mean for you and the team?
It's obviously from a personal perspective. Of course, I want to get on the field. I'm had a year and a bit out, and I've gone and done my knee in now, and I've just got to wait that little bit longer. But the persistence is still there. I'm going to be there, so better be ready for that. I think our main goal is just to prove to people that we're not just some backwater Division 2 team. Because looking at the previous seasons, like I mentioned before, like we didn't win any games the season before this one, and the season before that we made the playoffs and kind of backed out a bit for player safety purposes. I think it's just a matter of proving to people that we are a decent team now, and those sorts of irregularities aren't going to continue. In terms of the teams we're playing, I think most people are concerned about Bristol because it's not Apache we're playing, it's Aztecs.
Aztecs, yeah.
So we're going to have some Prem level competition, even though I know Prem teams have considered that they're going to be against Div 2 teams, which I do appreciate. I know some players are worried about South Wales, but that's not something that phases me. I think it's just something that people need to get out of their system. And I've not really played Birmingham. Obviously, they're one of our more local teams, joined by Hereford. But I don't think that a lot of the players are too concerned about those fixtures. I think it's mainly South Wales and Aztecs at the moment, but we'll see when we get there.
Yeah, as I'd love to try and get Bristol on and see if they're actually delighted at not having to travel to London every other week. But I'm sure they'll be appreciative of not having to go so far for this year before they probably then go back to their normal ventures in 2022. But yeah, like just to touch on obviously the 2019 season, obviously not a nice season to have, like you mentioned, with no wins. Any kind of players, what's the retention of players from that season? Are they more determined to put the record straight and put it right? And does it help that there's not necessarily a chip on their shoulder, but they've got the grip between their teeth a bit more, maybe?
I think those of us that have stuck around have got a little bit more gritty, because by the end of that season there were only about minimum numbers. I was playing both sides of the ball and special teams. I wasn't coming off the pitch, and a lot of other players weren't. And some aren't playing at the moment, but that's mainly because of they've started a family or they're trying to start a new job somewhere, which is completely understandable. But we've got enough of those players still in the team, and players who have returned that didn't play in that season for injury purposes, who have returned and are encouraging rookies and getting them involved in the club, not just on the grass, but socially as well. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to retain these players and retain the rookies from this season. Hopefully send our numbers up even more, and hopefully give some of us linemen a bit of a breather.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just a point on the season, the regionalised divisions. Are you a fan of going this way this year and then returning to type kind of in 2022, or what were your thoughts on how kind of this season's manifested itself?
Well, because I was responsible for sorting out the scheduling for the team and being in communications with Buffer and Warren Smart. When I first saw it, I didn't think it was too bad an idea, especially considering a lot of teams didn't have the opportunity to make revenue last season. And so as a result, things like transport would probably be a bit more of an issue, especially since you don't know what coach companies are going to want or demand after this pandemic, whether they're going to need social distancing on coaches or whether prices are going to change. And so I think being able to play teams like Hereford and Birmingham and potentially Swindon and Bristol, they're relatively easy to get to. So I think from a financial perspective, it's a lot better for clubs. Whether players feel the same way, that's up to them. Everybody has an opinion. Obviously, this isn't the way I'd want it to stay because of the level that other players would have to play at. I don't mind a bit of a crack at a Prem team, but there are people in the team who need that Division 2 competitiveness, I think, before they go any further.
Sure.
I think it works for the time being. It was a really good quick fix, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned about the travel, we spoke to Samuel a week or two ago, and they said that they were able to not travelling all the way up to Edinburgh or travelling the distances they would have had to in the Prem. Essentially cut a third off of their travel expenses, which then was able, they were able to kind of pay that forward to the players and brought their membership, the money they have to fork out a bit down as well. So yeah, I probably tend to agree with you. I think considering where we are in the world and considering the state of play at the moment, divisional, there's going to be some teams that aren't going to enjoy it maybe as much as others, and some people are probably going to throw their toys out the pram a little bit more because they'll question the validity or how much the teams at a lower level, shall we say, will get out of it, especially if they're pitted against Prem teams. But be interesting to see how the season unfolds and kind of some storylines that maybe emerge. And hey, who knows? There might be a shock or two. You never know. And so we'll keep a week to week eye on that. We bring in everyone fixtures, results, and interviews as well. So, but just before we let you go, Ed, just aspirations for you personally over the next couple of years, and then aspirations for the team in general.
Well, obviously, my personal aspiration is to be fighting fit again. I should be come mid-season, so fingers crossed, nothing bad happens that way.
No more tackling for you.
Well, that's why I play on offense. Yeah, but I'll probably be playing both ways. I know what they're like, but making sure everything's fine. As a player, I'm hoping to try and drive this team into Division 1 as a minimum, because I definitely think that we've got players who also have that mindset. We just need to ingrain that in everyone else. When I was playing in university with the Royals, I was there when they took the team into Division 1, and it's the greatest feeling ever, getting your team promoted. And I want other players in Worcestershire to be able to share that feeling, I guess, especially since American football in Worcestershire hasn't been massive in the past 10 years, considering this team was only founded in 2015. I'm just hoping to champion the sport, make it absolutely massive in a county which is quite rugby dominated, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But
no.
we've got, I'm very passionate about this, and that's why at my age, and even though I'm still a player and still in my prime, that is why I'm the secretary of a club at the end of the day, because I want to see this club do its best. I want to keep it in Worcester.
Yeah, as I say, we wish you obviously all the best and best luck for this season. Obviously beyond, we'll keep an eye out for you guys, and obviously we'd love to have you on a bit further, maybe on down as the season progresses, see how you're getting on, see if you actually got back on the field at that point. Maybe we'll get you back on the week after your first game back. Obviously, best of luck to you guys and Worcestershire in general. It's been great to have you on. Just before we let you go, Ed, just maybe want to signpost everyone again to your socials and the website that you have. If people in the Worcestershire area or local to you kind of want to know a bit more about you, maybe come down and watch or play or contribute in some way.
Yeah, so at the moment we're based up at Worcestershire Rugby Club, which is up by Sixway Stadium, which is where the Worcester Warriors play. And if you want to follow us on any of our social media, so we've got Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If message us through any of those, and we'll get in touch. You can find us at WBK Football UK.
There
or
you
can just Google Worcestershire Black Knights if you fancy typing all that out.
If in doubt, just Google it. Yeah, it's weird that Google essentially is actually a verb, but yeah, that's for another podcast. That's going to wrap it up for the full 10 yards. So you can find out all the good stuff that we're doing at full 10 yards for the game of Britball over at full10yards.com/Britball. You can follow us on socials at full 10 yards or at F10Y Britball is our Britball channel on Twitter, and again we're on Instagram, Facebook, and on all the rest of it as well. So don't give us a follow. Do subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts if you're listening on that as well. That will help us in a small way to be able to help invest back into the game. I have been Timothy Lambert Monk. We will do this all again next week, all for the game.